Welcome to Love and Money with Barbara Treadwell, where we explore the deep connection between our money and the people we love. This afternoon, I'm so pleased to have my friends and clients, Sue and Wendell, here. Our subject matter is a tender one. It's the adult disabled child at home, and they've been so kind to come in and talk to us about their experience with their son, Matthew. So I'm just going to open it up to the two of you. You can decide who goes first, but just give me a little bit of background about Matthew and his disability. At what age did you learn that he had a problem, and where did you go from there?
Okay, let's start with the family first. We've got two boys. The first one was born in 1984. He didn't have any issues. A normal child. Matthew was born in 1988, and after, I guess, maybe 3 years old or so, we noticed we thought developmentally delayed, and we wound up going to a neurologist. And we were fortunate in the fact that the neurologist had just come back from a conference where they discussed Fragile X. And as it turns out, that's what Matthew has. So I'll let you.
And the Fragile X came from me. I was a carrier, but I was adopted. I did not know that ran in my family. But we found out Matthew, or the doctor suspected it. But it was a few number of years when we went to Denver, Colorado, where the preeminent doctor in Fragile X was located. And they did blood work, and they found out that Matthew for sure was mosaic for Fragile X.
Tell them what mosaic means. Most people probably don't know.
You can have a full mutation or pre-mutation. Matthew was a mixture of the two. There was 5% in the full mutation range, and 95% of his DNA was in the pre-mutation range, which he was mildly affected, but he was affected by the defect in that gene.
And for those of you who don't know, Fragile X is similar to autism in terms of what you would see from the outside. It can vary from fairly minor, which I say fairly minor, but minor to just catastrophic.
Yeah, severe developmentally delayed.
And how did it manifest itself with Matthew?
He was slow to learn things. Like, he didn't talk till he was like 4. And when I would bring it up to his pediatrician, he would tell me, well, Winston Churchill didn't talk till he was 5. And I would tell the pediatrician, yes, but I was not Winston Churchill's mother. I'm Matthew's mother, and this is bothering me because I know something's wrong. And that's when we went to make sure his hearing was fine, which it was, and then the ENT recommended a neurologist, which is how we found out about the Fragile X.
And how old is he now?
Matthew is 37 now. And when he was being diagnosed, the neurologist said he'll never have a job, he'll never drive, he'll never, all these never, never, nevers. Well, when I take him back to the neurologist, he just shakes his head and he said, see, we as doctors don't know everything. Matthew has a job and he drives. He is still very, very shy around people, will not speak up and just go with the flow.
What does your normal day look like at home?
Matthew's got a part-time job now. But let's back up. I mean, getting him to where he is today was not exactly easy. When he was diagnosed, I guess my wife had been working for about 10 years. She quit her job and she went full-time advocating for Matthew.
Yeah, and from the age of about 4 until he finished school, he was in speech therapy to help him comprehend and understand words and to use it. and he's very well spoken now. He gets up in the morning to go to his job, and he fixes his own breakfast. He gets ready. They do come pick him up in a bus because his job is in Savannah. And Matthew is directionally impaired, so if it's not someplace familiar, he doesn't drive there. But he does his own thing. He does his laundry. If he wants something to eat in the kitchen, he goes and fixes it. Now, it has to be something simple. It can't be something with a lot of steps. It's got to be just very simple. And he loves chicken nuggets, and you can't get much simpler than that.
But when you quit work, we looked at what was available locally, and Matthew was in the public school system till
Fifth grade.
fifth grade, and then there was a new school that started up just strictly for kids with disabilities, and he stayed in that till he was 21.
No, he
20,
was 18.
18. And then after he got out of that, he went to Warm Springs, Georgia, which you want to tell him a little bit about?
Yeah, Warm Springs in the state of Georgia is where Franklin Roosevelt used to go to and get in the springs that would help his polio. But they have a vocational training center there for residents of Georgia that have special needs. And Matthew went there for a year, and during that time, they try them out on 3 different job locations to see what their interest is. Matthew worked in a grocery store, which he didn't like. He worked in a school library, which he loved. And I forget the third one, but they would try them out. They would teach them, you've got to do your laundry, and it has to be done at a certain time because you can't mess up the schedule. You had to learn to know when your schedule was. And I would go up there to visit him every 2 weeks because he wanted to come home. He was homesick. But he made it through. He stayed there a year, and he graduated from their little program.
That's wonderful. You said he has an older brother, so how was the sibling relationship during the growing up years?
It was difficult sometimes. I mean, they loved each other, but Stephen was 4.5 years older than Matthew. And Stephen was very, very smart. And here's Matthew struggling. And so a lot of the things that Stephen would do, the other one would stay home with Matthew. Or if it was like Stephen played baseball, we'd take him to the ball field, but one of us would have to watch him because he was prone to wander off. And, he would have no sense of direction to come back and find us. But, I know they love each other, but Stephen now lives in Denver, so they don't see each other very often.
Do they talk on the phone?
Yeah, when Stephen calls, Wendell and I'll talk to Stephen, and then Matthew will come in and they'll talk for a few minutes.
We talked a little bit about advocacy earlier too, and like I said, Sue quit her job and full time, trying to support Matthew, and part of that advocacy was participating in R&D programs, I guess, throughout the country.
Yeah, a lot of universities and medical centers, they research Fragile X. And we've been to Wisconsin, we've been to Connecticut, we've been to Massachusetts, we went to California. We've been to Colorado. There's just a lot of research going into it. And so the more participants they get to do testing with, advances the research. But not all Fragile X kids can travel like Matthew does because some of them are severely affected, and you can't put them on an airplane because they're not, the sensory overload would just be too much for them. But Matthew can travel pretty well.
Other than the 1-year residential program that he was in, speaking of advocacy, are there other programs that he has been involved with, and are there programs for the parents?
I don't know of any current programs for the parents. I'm sure there are some, but the uh, employability is in Savannah, and they are the ones that found Matthew and another young man that works with Matthew at Fulfillment. They found them this job, and they've both been there since 2017. And it's only part-time, but it's a job. And a lot of people they don't want to mess with people that can't come in and do the stuff they need them to do immediately. With children like Matthew, they need a job coach, and they have a wonderful lady that stays with them the whole time they're at work and shows them and instructs them on what to do. But employability found the job for Matthew.
And they're still in business.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yes.
Matthew had another job, I guess, before this one that he didn't have a job coach, and he lasted, was it a week?
A month.
A month, and they fired him. He couldn't follow multi-step instructions.
That's a wonderful program. Do you know if it's national or does it just happen here in Savannah?
I'm sure probably in other communities they have something like it. I don't know if it's national or not. There's also a service up in Springfield called B&B Care Services. They, in the past, when Matthew was in school, they had a camp for kids with special needs, and they paid for Matthew and some other children to go to camp so they would get to experience
Yes.
what camp was in the summer. And they loved it.
Has there been a financial impact as a result of Matthew's disability to the family budget and household
Well,
finances?
we support probably half or
More
of his living expenses. I mean, he only works a couple of days a week now, and so there is an impact.
Yes.
You just live within your means.
Well, I know you two to be very disciplined savers and investors. I just wondered if that's been a long-standing impact, because sometimes with disabilities and children living at home, there are additional expenses. Does he have any physical needs, any walking aids or physical supports?
No, he does have hearing aids and he wears glasses. And so he needed hearing aids from about the time he was 12, but he did not want them. And now he loves them. So he won't go anywhere without his hearing aids. But that's about the only assistive device he needs right now. That's not to say in the future he won't need other things.
And what about the future? What do you think about and plan for in terms of long-term planning for Matthew?
Well, we're working on a trust so that when we do die, that Matthew has a fund that can help sustain him, hopefully for the rest of his life. And we're still working on that.
As you know, I also had a disabled son, and I was quite sure that I would predecease him, but it didn't work out that way. He died about 13 years ago. He was 41. But I was very, very involved in trying to plan for what would happen when I wasn't on this earth anymore, to advocate for him and watch out for him. And it's on the minds of any parent with a child with any special needs of any kind.
Yes. And I think Matthew would do fine. I worry about other people who don't have good intentions taking advantage of him.
That's a very big concern. It's very difficult because he's probably trusting and naive to a certain extent, because he doesn't have the sophistication of having managed his own life entirely all of his life. I
Right.
know that weighs on you. I can understand that. Um, what has been, and you may think this is an unusual question, but what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this journey that you have been through with Matthew?
Well, we met a lot of people, and the people that we met during Matthew's early years with the school system, we still have those friends today, and we still go out with them, and we still keep up with each other's kids.
Yeah, all of the people that we're probably closest to are people who had children with disabilities like we did. So we just kind of gravitated together and became our own little social group. Because not everybody is accepting of children with disabilities. And sometimes they can be difficult to manage. Um, and you just, you develop a bond with these other people because they know exactly what you're going through
Yes.
and you know what they're going through. So that's been a very rewarding aspect of having a child with a disability. It's all the wonderful people we met.
Are most of those people in your church? I know you're very, very active in your church. I just was curious if the friends that you have made are also church members where you go, where you attend?
Not where we go,
No.
but most of them do go to church, but just not with us. Um, yeah.
And on the opposite side of that fence, what has been the most challenging aspect of this experience?
Um, Developing patience for me.
That's not my strong suit either, Wendell. um,
Uh, Sometimes I forget, Matthew still got disabilities. I tell him I expect it to happen, and he doesn't understand, or he doesn't follow through.
uh-huh.
Yeah, the challenge is telling Matthew something you want him to do this, and he goes and he does something completely different than what you said because he didn't hear what you said. So I've learned with him, and me too. I'm a visual learner. Show me and I can do it. So many times I'll have to say, okay, this is what you want to do. I'll have to show him because the verbal is not going to cut it. He needs to actually see what's happening.
How aware is Matthew of his disability? And does he know what Fragile X is? I mean, have you had that conversation with him?
Yes. I mean, he knows he got it from me. And because I was adopted, I didn't know about the genetics in this family.
Yes.
But after I met them and I was trying to find my biological father, I came up with some names and before I told anybody in the family that Matthew had Fragile X, they told me it can't be them. They have Fragile X. And then I knew I
Okay.
was getting close to finding where I fit in. But yes, he knows he has a disability. One time he told me, he said, I don't have Fragile X. And I looked at him and I said, yes, you do. And furthermore, I have it too. And then it was like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
If you've got it, then it's okay.
Uh-huh. I think
So,
you handled that beautifully. Just,
yeah.
you I know you well, so you don't beat around the bush about anything, but I think I think that helps Matthew accept and
Yes,
adjust.
because he didn't want to feel like an oddball.
No, of
And
course
by
not.
mom
Of
having
course
it,
not.
there's more, there's more people that have it other than just me.
Yes, exactly. And looking back, would you is there anything you would have done differently?
Not a thing.
No, you do the best you can with what you've got.
Well, and I know that what's on the top of your minds now is creating a long-term plan, and there will be resources that you will be able to turn around and pay it forward and help other people, and that's really my last question. What advice would you give to other parents who are facing the situation either with your specific, I had never heard of Fragile X until you told me about it, but what advice would you have of other parents who are learning that their child has a disability and then knowing that they have a long life, a different life ahead of them than simply raising the child? They go off to school and they leave and get married and have another life of their own. Matthew is your life for your whole lifetime. That's very
Mhm.
different than your other child, for instance.
Be prepared for long-term advocacy, not just, like you say, not just through high school or college or even, but it's lifelong. And you deal with whatever comes up.
And I know when Matthew was in school, I familiarized myself as much as I possibly could with what the laws were for the state of Georgia concerning special education. And knowledge is power. If you see something they're doing and it's contrary to what the law says they should be doing, you need to advocate, advocate, and advocate some more for your child, because if you don't advocate for them, no one else will.
That's profound, Sue. And it's truly coming from a mother who loves her child, and I know that you have devoted your life to him, and I'm so pleased that and grateful um, that you were willing to come and talk to us about this. I know it's going to mean a lot to other people who either have a situation themselves or or know somebody who is with a disabled child. It's another life altogether, and we have to help each other out and help each other get through it and survive it and share our good ideas. And it's just wonderful that you sharing with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
I wanted to know that Sue and Wendell remained for about an hour after we had the interview, and something came up in our conversation that I wanted to relate to you. We talked about the difficulties that parents of disabled children experience, but that there are also joys and sometimes gifts. And I said, in your lifetime with Matthew, can you think of a gift that he has given you through his condition? And Sue thought about it for a minute, and she said, I am humble because of Matthew. I used to be a judgmental person before he was born. But now, after seeing what he has gone through and how hard he works to fit in, have a job, drive a car, become a member of society, it's just humbled me. And now, when I see a parent whose child is out of control, obviously a disabled child, in the past I would have said, why can't that parent control their child? Now I have sympathy and empathy because I know what they're going through. So I turned to Wendell and I said, what about your gift? He said, Matthew is so pure of spirit and heart and so kind. He knows that he's different, and yet if he sees an old person struggling, he will stop what he's doing to go and help them, hold the door, carry their package. And he said, I used to be a cynical person. I still fight it. But when I look at my son, who's so pure of heart, it makes me want to be much more like him than I am. I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was beautiful. Thanks for joining me on Love and Money with Barbara Treadwell. I hope today's conversation gave you something to think about as you navigate your own financial and personal journey. You can also visit barbaratreadwell.com to learn more about my work and connect with me. See you on the next episode.
The views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of Barbara Treadwell, LLC, and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities or services mentioned herein. Unless otherwise specified, show guests are not securities licensed or affiliated with Barbara Treadwell, LLC, or Osaic Wealth. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should only be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.